May is National Foster Care Month, and this video is part of a fundraiser to keep kids out of foster care. So all the ad money on this one is going to go to safe families, and I'll tell you more about them at the end. Adolescence on Netflix is an outstanding drama, and it has led to some extremely shallow social commentary and government attempts to control toxic online influencers who are a pernicious disease of thought that is infecting children, as one of the creators put it. Lovely.
We have to do something!
For the children!
For the children!
The show's creators, Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham, hoped Adolescence would start a conversation, and it certainly has. Points there. Sadly, it seems to have settled onto boys are dangerous, and we have to keep the Manosphere from activating their killer instinct, and also teach them to be better, whatever that means. Of course, this plays right into the hands of said influencers. This attitude perfectly primes young men for the Manosphere sales pitch that the world hates them and wants to feminize them, but their manly miracle tonic is the cure. This combination of victim mentality and 80s action movie hyper-masculinity with a dash of consumerism will help them escape the Matrix. Naturally, the online discourse ignores one big, glaring problem, just as the show does, but we'll get to that soon. See, if you haven't seen the show, I do want to take just a moment to praise it as a show. Like, as a fictional drama, it is easily one of the best dramas I've seen in years. You may have heard about the one-shot technique that they employed, where each hour-long episode is one continuous camera shot. No cuts, no hidden breaks or anything. It's technically impressive. The planning that went into it, crazy. The actor prep, very laudable. But for you, the viewer, what this is going to translate into is far more emotion than most modern shows and movies. See, too often creators know that they can reshoot, edit, they can add in voices while looking at the back of somebody's head, or just have CGI cover somebody's mouth while they clearly say something different.
Every day that goes by, my appointment with death gets closer. And you still have found nothing? I came from nothing, less than nothing. I will not give up everything I've built.
The actors know it too, and there's just something different about a single line that they've delivered for the 17th take of the day, and then the filmmaking committee decides, yep, that's the best one, we'll cut that in, versus the real and continuous human interaction that makes up each episode of Adolescence. All of this adds to the emotion and feeling that you get while watching. In the first episode, we're following Jamie for a bit as he has just been pulled from bed at gunpoint, wetting himself, and he's then arrested, and multiple adults are droning instructions at him while he tries to get his bearings and comprehend it all. The continuous shot lets us feel the dehumanizing and confusing nature of the system as it processes just another case. Then the parents show up and they're shuffled back and forth between rooms, and the continuous shot lets you feel the claustrophobic panic of a parent who is trying to get answers about why their child has just been arrested while the bureaucracy mills about around them, uncaring and robotic. The third episode is almost entirely one room and two people, and the tension that you feel because of the single shot is crazy. That episode also shows off the incredible talent of Owen Cooper. This guy is 15 years old. It's his first acting job. This is phenomenal. It's a compelling drama. It's going to draw you in. This is not a show that you're going to like have on in the background with your phone in your hand. You will be glued to this. It's great art, just not a documentary. And sadly, it's being talked about as a documentary, and even its creators were initially inspired to use it to talk about knife crime against women in the UK. Stephen Graham said he saw 2 news stories in as many days of young girls who had been stabbed to death, which led him to create the show with Thorne. The show has exploded in popularity, and now we have the same sensationalized danger as shark attacks during Shark Week. Violent crime, knife crime, should be talked about and taken seriously. Shark attacks should be talked about and taken seriously. You should know the risk and possible preventions. These are all good things. See, the reason that Graham saw these news stories, though, is the same reason we report on shark attacks and plane crashes. They're extreme, they're emotional. He saw 2 of them close together, and it elicited a very natural disgust and sadness, emotions that helped create some great television, which is cool. But now, the Prime Minister keeps calling it a documentary.
But also, how can we protect young girls that are at risk? Because obviously that's a very strong feature of the
the documentary, the drama.
Now, news anchors are treating this like an epidemic, to the hilarious point where they think watching the show and talking about it is more important than actual community action.
It's a 4-part series on Netflix, and everyone is talking about it.
I've been going to schools all around the country. I was in Evesham just yesterday, talking to head teachers, talking to the students, and they talk about the problems that phones are causing.
The difference this documentary has made compared to, say, a politician, any politician, leader of a party, the Prime Minister, going around talking in schools, is this has made much more of an impact than any politician had.
Now, there are calls to display this fictional drama in classrooms to educate the children.
It'll work. No, it will backfire.
Not surprisingly, the conversation the show has started has turned into a moral panic about boys and how dangerous they are. The fear-driven approach of banning social media so the scary influencers can't radicalize the guys will backfire, because it starts with the assumption that boys are inherently violent and volatile, just waiting for the spark of a sneako or a freshen fit to set them off. The real irony of all of this is that forcing boys to sit through a struggle session of watching this show will make them more susceptible to those influencers, because it will only reinforce to them that they are viewed as fundamentally flawed and need to be fixed. Guess who tells them that they aren't alone in noticing this attitude and that they're actually just fine the way they are? Yeah, it's the Manosphere tells them that. It also reeks of typical low-hanging political fruit that ensures a candidate can later say that they were tough on some issue. Actually, right now, I want to say, you should not ask how a video can entertain you, but how you can use your fingers to like this video. I'm American, and I can't do half the American accents in this country. Anyway, it didn't have to be this way. What's incredibly sad is that the show brushes up against several important topics, but it doesn't notice because the writers were too worried about male rage and the dangers of boys who might watch Andrew Tate. What the show accidentally displays, but barely acknowledges, is a total breakdown of support for kids and a double standard for boys that nobody likes to acknowledge. The second episode gives us a school where no one has any control, and all the teachers just hate their jobs. Teachers are under enormous stress from parents who don't participate or back them up, from unruly students who they are not allowed to discipline in even minor ways, and from above, with increasing pressure to raise testing scores, leave no child behind, and abide by a growing list of bureaucratic demands like avoiding talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because some students might be othered by talk of a common American food that might not be common for them. Yes, that was real. The show displayed the asylum being run by the inmates as a result, but only as a backdrop. Another blind spot is that while these writers decided to focus on the effects of certain social media on boys, it failed to miss that kids widely are never given the chance to unplug and decompress, because social media follows them home. The school bubble follows them everywhere. Can you imagine that kind of pressure? I mean, I know some of you actually can. You guys get emails and work texts at home. We all talk about how unhealthy that work culture is, but these kids are going through the same thing with less maturity and fewer coping mechanisms. Beyond that, episode 3 did an excellently accidental job of showing the different communication styles of men and women, but chose to paint the male side as incorrect and walled off, immature. We don't even attempt to approach the topic of how those communication and behavioral differences do not generally bode well for boys in a classroom setting. The show tries to touch on a lack of solid male influence for boys, which would have been important, but the writers didn't want to blame the parents, which sounds good-natured, except the presence of involved parents is massively important. And then this story leaves you with the idea that, well, this is just random, could sneak up and happen to anyone.
It could happen to anybody, you know what I mean? We thought it would be interesting to shine a light on the devastation that causes, the ripple effect that has on everybody.
But every piece of available data will show that is absurd. This was really the biggest miss, in my opinion, because I have 3 sons, a little biased, one of whom is 13. He's over 6 feet tall, so I have to coach him on how to not loom over people. Boys need men in their lives to tell them what is appropriate man behavior. For example, my enormous offspring needs to know that we are not allowed to ask other grocery store customers if they need help reaching something, But if they ask us, we are required to oblige. This is the law of the giants. And of course, we skirt right past the topic of bullying because this particular type is not palatable. See, when boys lash out at their male bullies, we talk about bullying. When Jamie lashes out at Katie, we talk about male rage. His mentioning of the bullying is framed as an excuse, a deflection. Strangely, Katie doesn't come up much at all in the show, which the writers have the female detective point out to us, and then the show keeps ignoring her. When she does get mentioned, however, she is given no agency, as is common when allies try to speak up for their pet group. Part of the plot involves our main character, Jamie, asking Katie out before the show starts because the nude photos that she sent to another boy got sent around, and she was embarrassed. So Jamie felt that she was vulnerable and primed to accept his advances, which is pretty crappy. He was subsequently and deservedly rejected, but then bullied publicly online by Katie. Now, because Katie's the victim and we are scared to victim blame, we end up in a place where we remove her agency and the broader agency of women in general with this message. If you've seen arguments about sexual crimes online, you will have seen comments that where a woman was or what she was wearing should not matter.
That is true.
It should not. You will also see comments that, instead of asking about clothes or states of inebriation, we need to be teaching boys to keep their hands to themselves.
That is also true.
I fully agree with that. As a matter of fact, I want to take this opportunity to very bravely say publicly on the record, sexual violence is wrong. Thank you. Standing ovations are not necessary. Stop, please. It looks like I'm just a humble guy courageously speaking truth to power. This isn't necessary. Please stop. Listen, seriously. While we're waiting for those two very important goals to happen, are we basically just going to tell women that they're powerless? There's nothing that they should or even could do. It's all on the men. They have to just wait for the men to be better? That's empowering? Unfortunately, the kinds of folks that would make a show like this one that paints one identity group as a powerless victim class and then removes their agency in order to defend them, one that would try to protect other groups by casting characters who don't match up with crime statistics, folks who would throw vague aspersions toward boys in general, they will never be able to point to the heart of what's wrong with the Manosphere because they suffer from the same problem. This show ignores one theme so hard, the glaring contrast of its absence might as well point right to it. The biggest topic that is not being discussed in this show is how kids come to value themselves and how using external markers, especially shallow ones, is a doomed strategy. This is the poison that's inside the red pill. But anybody who defends identity groups, who bludgeons you with buzzwords like inequity and inclusion, or who goes out of their way to use kid gloves for certain groups so they can be a good ally, they have the same poison in them. We can parse out hints of it in the show that they could have explored but didn't. Why does Jamie want a girlfriend at 13 to begin with? Well, because that's what cool guys do. Gets you respect and status. She makes you feel good, so he goes after Katie because, well, it's going to be easy. And he might even be seen as a rescuer, which will also feel nice, probably. Why does Katie send naked pictures of herself? So a boy can tell her how pretty and desirable she is. So somebody else can tell her that she has value. Why are Jamie and Katie on Instagram at all? So they can get likes and feel validated. So the program can feed them things they agree with and they'll feel smart or seen. It's why Katie has to dominate Jamie publicly so she can recover some status relative to him. It's why he's murderously angry about these emojis and names that she calls him. It's why Jamie ends his therapy session screaming, "Do you like me?" It's why the kids we see in the school are loud and obnoxious because they crave any attention so badly. We even assign them value via letter grade. We want to validate every choice they make, which is counterintuitively the opposite of what they need, because it says, I don't care about you, I just like to feel good about myself. Truth is, most of them are following the example of the adults that they see. How many of us are chasing the very same external sense of worth? Anybody who talks about diversity and equity can never effectively combat these ideas because it's baked into the intersectional mindset that runs most of entertainment. How do you have value? By bravely bearing the weight of multiple intersections of oppression. And if not, you could signal your virtue by standing up for the marginalized with hashtags and casting choices. It's why they have to rely on accusations of misogyny toward the Manosphere, and they cannot bring up the lack of internal value to be found there because they don't have it either. This is the ultimate problem with the supposed self-improvement to be found by the Andrew Tates, the Fresh and Fits, the Wes something or other. I'll look it up when I edit. I just don't care that much. These guys will tell you that they understand your anger and your frustration because the world is against you. All they care about is women, minorities, whatever woke thing of the week it is. I mean, look at this Adolescence show. Look how they hate you. When I talk about Manosphere stuff, this is the defense that I hear. Greg, you don't get it. They know what guys are going through. Great, granted, they do. They identify the problems. And then they tell you that the solution is different external markers of value. Money, cars, houses, your physique, clothes and jewelry, women, status, connections, owning a business. They're all external, all valued by somebody else, all used to get something to serve yourself. I keep hearing about this wall that women supposedly hit, but did you know that there's a male version as well?
Because I was married 10 years ago to a woman, very lovely girl.
To a woman, okay.
To a woman, that's right. Tom, you've been with one in your life, you understand. And she wasn't a wife. She wanted to get married, but she wasn't willing to be a wife. So I sent her back out into
the pack,
her pasture.
To the herd.
As being a victim.
So how am I being the victim?
By you
Because I've done all the things that you've told people to do. Make money, get in good shape, increase your market value, increase your status, increase your network. I've done all those things. So now I'm receiving the benefits of doing that. Because I'm not settling down right now.
Okay. Adam, the biggest criticism towards you is your level of hypocrisy and not being able to make up your mind.
That's the problem when your whole game plan consists of a bunch of external stuff. There's no talk of personal service to others in these spaces, no discussion of ethics, philosophy, no encouragement toward contentment, improvement of your character, introspection. The only thing that ever comes close is talk of discipline, but that's usually perverted to mean stay disciplined in your hustle or your workout or whatever. If you don't have internal value, if you cannot detach yourself from things and status and pleasures and all the other temporary wants of the world which are passing away, then you can't ever be happy. It's not possible because there will always be more. Do you want to know why the richest man on the whole planet paid somebody to play a video game for him and then lied about being amazing at that video game? Do you want to know why a celebrity news anchor with a multi-million-dollar contract and a nationwide primetime audience needed to continually claim victim status? Because externals are never enough, even if you do have everything. Adolescence gets one big thing right. The kids are not okay, and that's because they don't have any foundation. Their self-image is defined by advertisers and algorithms. Their worth is derived from their pecking order in the Lord of the Flies schools that they're attending. They don't know what love really is. They don't know how relationships really work in any way but transactions. Most of them have never known real peace or contentment. It's kind of depressing, but you can help. Or you can help raise money at least. And to explain how, I'm going to get a friend of mine. All right, I got it from here. Hey, is it a continuity problem if we're using the same cup? Nah, screw it, doesn't matter. Listen, despite the show portraying an average two-parent middle-class family randomly having a murderer in their home, that is almost never the case. The reality's pretty intuitive. Kids who are the most at risk to be abused or abuse others or generally engage in destructive behavior are the ones who don't have anyone, who don't have a foundation, a place that's safe, that's consistent and familiar. They don't have anybody to talk to, anyone who lets them know that they're worth something. They don't feel basically loved or valued, just inherently, like as a human being. Eventually, they're going to become convinced that they are not worthy of those things, and they can't separate internal worth from external utility or transactions, and that usually leads to a lifetime of traumatic behaviors. Enter you, who can become a foster parent. Now, don't say no, you can't, because I believe in you. I've done it. I think you could do it. It's going to be hard, but the kids are worth it. That's the whole point. Or you can get involved with an organization like Big Brothers Big Sisters, or You could do part-time foster care with who we're raising money for. That's Safe Families for Children. See, they try to keep families out of foster care because it's kind of a nightmare by finding families who can take in kids for multiple days on a regular basis. Maybe the single parent is in the hospital and they don't have a support system. Boom, you're there. Maybe the parents work weird shifts, or maybe they need space to enter some kind of rehabilitation, get their head above water in some way. Boom, you're there. Might be a couple of days a week, might be every other whole week. You would be like a non-custody parent in terms of how much time you'd be committing, if that makes it clear. See, I know you can do it regardless of your situation because kids don't need stuff, just like you and I don't really need stuff. They need adults who treat them like people instead of an object that keeps getting in their way or could be used. And that's you, hopefully. Safe Families needs you. But they also need money to make all of that happen. I encourage you to give to them, and I appreciate you getting this far in the video because that's more ad money that can be given to that organization. So have you seen Adolescence? What did you think? What does it get wrong? What does it get right? How should the conversation around all of this be going? I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time.